I was standing at my kitchen window when I saw the silver Honda slow down on the county road, then pull to a stop in front of our gate. I knew that car. My sister Aubrey had driven it for years. Always clean, always polished, always smelling faintly like vanilla perfume and expensive lotion. For 3 years, I had not heard her voice, except through other people's stories. For 3 years, she had lived 10 miles from me and still felt farther away than another country. And now, there she was, parked at the edge of my driveway, phone pressed to her ear, crying so hard her shoulders shook. I watched her stare at the house, our house, the one my husband Cole built with reclaimed oak beams, salvaged stone, and calloused hands that my father once dismissed as useless. The house sitting on 5 acres of Georgia hillside, with a wraparound porch, handmade cabinets, a workshop behind it, and magnolia trees lining the gravel drive. The house my parents said we would never afford. The house my father said I was foolish to dream about because I had chosen the wrong man, the wrong life, and the wrong future. 3 years earlier, my father looked me in the eye at his dining room table and said the words that changed everything. "You don't deserve any help." Those words cost him his store, his reputation, his comfort, his standing in our town, and both his daughters in ways he did not understand until it was too late. But what happened at the fundraiser, in a room full of 200 people, is the part people in Gray, Georgia, still talk about in low voices while pretending they do not love gossip. That was the night my family's clean little story cracked open in public, and everyone saw what had been hidden under the polish. Welcome back to Calm Drama Stories. My name is Nora Bennett. I am 32 years old, a CPA, a wife, a business owner, and the daughter who spent 8 years doing her family's books for free while being treated like an unpaid appliance in the corner. This is the story of what happened when my parents handed my younger sister $100,000 for her wedding and told me I did not deserve a single cent. If you have ever poured your best years into people who only noticed you when something broke, stay with me. This one is for you. I grew up in Gray, Georgia, in a yellow clapboard house, 2 streets behind Main Avenue, where my father, Arthur Whitlock, ran Whitlock Hardware and Supply for 22 years. He started that store with borrowed money from his parents, a second mortgage on my grandmother's house, and the kind of pride that sounds like courage when a man is young and like stubbornness when he gets older. My mother, Denise, had been a nurse before I was born. She quit when my sister came along and told everyone she had chosen family over a career. She said it with a smile, but even as a child, I could hear something sharp behind it. The store was our family's center of gravity. Our income came from there. Our conversations came from there. Our Sunday dinners were full of supplier complaints, paint orders, payroll stress, and customers who wanted contractor discounts after buying one screwdriver. Whitlock Hardware was not just a business to my father. It was proof that he mattered. It was proof that he had built something. It was proof that the Whitlock name meant something in our town. I started doing the books when I was 24, right after I passed my CPA exam. The old accountant, Mr. Reese, retired after 30 years and moved to Florida to live near his daughter. Hiring another professional would have cost my parents more than they wanted to pay. I heard the worry in my mother's voice one night when she said, "Your father is already stretched thin." I heard my father mutter that accountants were thieves with calculators. So I offered. "I can handle it for a while," I said, "just until you find someone." That was 8 years ago. Every quarter, I balanced the ledger, filed sales tax, prepared payroll, reconciled vendor invoices, reviewed receivables, cleaned up cash flow reports, updated inventory sheets, and made sure the Georgia Department of Revenue did not come knocking. I caught a $13,800 billing error from a lumber supplier in my second year. I renegotiated their insurance policy and saved them $5,900 a year. I found an equipment lease clause in year 5 that would have renewed automatically for 3 more years at a terrible rate, and I got them out of it before they lost another $7,000. I caught double payments, bad invoices, late fees, payroll mistakes, and supplier creep. I did not get a paycheck. I did not get a bonus. I did not even get a gift card at Christmas. The closest I got to gratitude was my father squinting at a quarterly report and saying, "Looks right." My younger sister Aubrey was 3 years behind me and somehow always 3 steps ahead in our parents' hearts. She was beautiful in that effortless way that made strangers soften around her. Blonde hair, soft green eyes, a smile that could make salespeople offer discounts they had no authority to give. She worked at a boutique on Willow Street that sold linen dresses, imported candles, ceramic mugs with gold handles, and scarves that cost more than my electric bill. My mother introduced her to church friends as our Aubrey, like she was a family treasure wrapped in tissue paper. I was introduced as Nora, who does the numbers. Aubrey was the one in the center of family photos. Aubrey was the one my mother took to bridal showers, church luncheons, and women's ministry breakfasts. Aubrey's birthday had balloons, cake, and Facebook posts with 12 pictures. Mine usually came with a text at 8:46 p.m. saying, "Hope your day was good." Aubrey's engagement photo would eventually go on the mantle before the ring was even properly sized. I was the daughter with a filing cabinet in my apartment, a spreadsheet open on Christmas morning, and a habit of telling myself that useful was close enough to loved. I did not hate Aubrey then. That part matters. I did not look at her and think she stole anything from me. Children do not divide love. Parents do. What I resented was the quiet system around her. The way my parents treated her needs like family emergencies and treated mine like personal problems. The way they smiled at her softness and benefited from my strength. The way they called me reliable, then used that word until it became a cage. Aubrey got engaged on a Saturday in April. Her fiancé, Grant Calloway, was 31, a sales manager at the Ford dealership outside Macon. He drove a leased black SUV, wore slim suits, and had the kind of confidence that made people mistake loudness for leadership. He tipped well in restaurants, laughed too hard at his own jokes, and had an opinion about everything except his own spending. I did not dislike him at first. I did not know him well enough, but I noticed details. I always noticed details. His watch was too expensive for his job. His credit card got declined at brunch once, and he blamed the machine without blinking. He talked about investments but could not explain compound interest. The engagement dinner was at my parents' house. Pot roast, my mother's good china, linen napkins, and a bottle of champagne my father pretended he knew how to open. Aubrey held out her hand every 12 minutes so someone could admire the ring. 2 carats, oval cut, platinum band. Grant kept saying he designed it, though I later learned he financed most of it through a jewelry store plan with 22% interest. My mother cried 3 separate times before dessert. I sat at the end of the table beside Cole, my then boyfriend. Cole Bennett had grown up on the rough side of Jones County, the son of a drywall contractor whose business collapsed when Cole was 16. His father's partner emptied the operating account and vanished west with a woman from a payroll company. The family lost their house, 2 trucks, the business, and most of their friends who had loved them only when the checks cleared. Cole dropped out of high school, got his GED at night, and learned carpentry from a retired contractor named Walt Grady, who had more patience than money and more character than anyone I had ever met. My father never forgave Cole for surviving without a degree. He called him handy when he wanted to be polite and unstable, when he wanted to be honest. My mother said Cole was sweet, with the same tone people use for a dog that cannot be house-trained. Aubrey liked him well enough when he fixed her closet shelf for free. Grant barely looked at him except to ask how the labor market was treating him. That night, Aubrey started talking about the wedding before my father had finished carving the roast. Lakeside venue near Lake Sinclair, 200 guests, live band, custom dress from Atlanta, champagne tower, orchids flown in from Ecuador, a documentary-style photographer, a videographer with drone footage, late-night food truck, custom napkins, signature cocktails named after their dogs, even though Grant did not own a dog and Aubrey's poodle hated him. "We're probably looking at $80,000, Grant said, like he was talking about the sticker price on a truck. Maybe more if we do the premium package." My parents exchanged a look. Not fear, not concern, not even surprise. It was the look of people who had already made a decision behind closed doors and were waiting for the correct lighting to reveal it. I felt the air shift before I understood why. There is a kind of silence that comes before a family wound. It does not announce itself. It just changes the temperature of the room. My father set down the carving knife, wiped his hands on his napkin, and cleared his throat. "Your mother and I have been talking." My mother folded her hands like she was about to pray. "We want to give Aubrey and Grant $100,000 for the wedding." Aubrey made us sound like a child seeing fireworks. Grant stood halfway up to shake my father's hand. My mother started crying again. The room filled with movement, hugs, thanks, laughter, champagne bubbles, and the warm performance of generosity. I sat still, doing the math because I could not stop doing the math. $100,000. That was more than double the store's annual profit in a decent year. That was nearly what Cole and I had been trying to save for a down payment. That was more than the total value of every unpaid hour I had admitted to myself at that point. That was the difference between being chosen and being expected. I opened my mouth before I planned to. Cole and I have been talking about getting married too, I said. Nothing big. Maybe a courthouse ceremony, maybe a small dinner. But if you were thinking about helping, my father cut me off before I could finish. He looked directly at me, not past me, not vaguely in my direction, at me. His expression did not soften. His voice did not shake. You don't deserve any help. The sentence landed with no cushion, no explanation first, no fatherly concern wrapped around it, just a clean, hard strike. Then he kept going. Cole doesn't have a real career. His family went bankrupt. I'm not throwing good money at a mistake. Nobody spoke. Aubrey looked down at her ring. Grant took another sip of champagne. My mother pressed her napkin against her lips and stared at the table like the pattern in the china had become fascinating. Cole went very still beside me. I felt his hand move under the table, not to pull me back, not to calm me down, but just to remind me he was there. I wanted to say many things. I wanted to ask my father how much of his store had been kept alive by my unpaid labor. I wanted to ask my mother whether she had heard him. I wanted to ask Aubrey if she understood what had just been purchased for her, at my expense. But years of training do not disappear in one moment. I did what I had been taught to do. I stayed controlled. I picked up my fork, set it down again, stood up and said, "Okay." That was all. I carried my plate to the kitchen, rinsed it, dried it, and put it back in the cabinet because some habits are stronger than humiliation. Then I got my coat, walked out the front door, and drove home with Cole beside me, neither of us speaking until we reached the apartment parking lot. That was the last meal I ever ate in that house. My mother called the next morning at 7:12. I was already at my desk reviewing a client's quarterly returns. She did not say hello. She did not ask if I slept. She did not ask how Cole felt after being insulted at dinner. "Your father didn't mean it like that," she said. I stared at the tax form in front of me. He said it clearly. "He's worried about you, Nora. Cole is kind, we know that. But kindness doesn't pay bills. Your father wants stability for you." I let the word sit between us. Stability. My mother had married a man who borrowed from his parents, nearly lost the store twice in the first 5 years, and spent 2 decades one bad quarter away from disaster. Stability was not something my family had. It was something my parents used to judge other people. "I appreciate the concern," I said. "Is there anything else?" "Don't be cold, we're family. Then treat me like it." She had no answer for that. She breathed into the phone for a moment, then said, "Aubrey needs this. She's always been more sensitive than you." There it was, the family math in one sentence. Aubrey needed because she cried. I did not need because I endured. My strength had become their excuse to withhold tenderness. I ended the call and sat in silence for a long time, watching the Georgia sun cut through the blinds in clean yellow lines. That morning, I understood something I should have understood years earlier. My father's refusal was not really about Cole. Cole was a convenient excuse. The real issue was control. My father had a blueprint for success: safe degree, safe spouse, safe house, safe choices, safe returns. I had followed enough of it to be useful, but not enough to be owned. The moment I chose someone he had not approved, I changed categories in his mind. I went from asset to liability, and my father did not invest in liabilities. My mother's part was quieter, but not kinder. She had given up nursing to raise us. She wore that sacrifice like a medal and a wound. When I built my own career, when I became the kind of woman who could stand on her own, I became proof that a woman could choose differently. Aubrey, who stayed close, needed help, cried easily, and accepted the life my mother understood, made Denise feel right. I made her feel questioned. They were not punishing me because I chose Cole. They were punishing me because I proved they had choices too. Aubrey's engagement party was 3 weeks later. I helped organize it because that is what I did. I solved problems before anyone admitted they existed. I ordered flowers from Harper's Florals, coordinated barbecue platters from Miller's Smokehouse, printed seating cards on my home printer at midnight, borrowed folding tables from the church basement, picked up champagne flutes from a rental company, and paid $238 out of my own pocket for last-minute supplies because my mother said, "We'll settle up later." and later in my family usually meant never. Nobody asked me to do these things directly. They did not have to. I had been trained to notice gaps and fill them with my own time. The party had 50 people, maybe more. Neighbors, church friends, Grant's dealership friends, my father's business contacts, women from my mother's Bible study. I arrived early, set up tables, hung garland, arranged flowers, chilled drinks, found extra chairs, handled a caterer who went to the wrong address, fixed the Bluetooth speaker, and cleaned red wine from the carpet before my mother even knew it spilled. When the guests arrived, I became invisible in the kitchen. That was my usual place at family events. Not seated, not celebrated, not centered. Useful, available, moving. My mother stood for a toast around 7. She thanked everyone who mattered for being there for Aubrey. She thanked Grant's parents for driving from Savannah. She thanked the florist by name. She thanked the caterer. She thanked the pastor's wife for helping guide Aubrey through this exciting season, though the pastor's wife had done nothing but bring spinach dip. She did not thank me. Then she smiled, raised her glass, and said, "We can only pour our hearts into one celebration in this family, and we are so grateful it gets to be this one." She looked at me when she said it, not with anger, with certainty. That was worse. Anger might have meant she knew it was cruel. Certainty meant she believed it was natural. Grant laughed and said, "Every family needs one princess and one accountant." The room laughed. Aubrey laughed. My father laughed. My mother smiled like it was harmless. I stood in the kitchen I had decorated, holding a champagne flute I had paid for, and something inside me clicked. Not broke. Breaking sounds dramatic. This was quieter. It was the sound of a lock turning. I understood that I had been volunteering for my own erasure. Every spreadsheet, every invoice, every free hour, every family event I helped run, every silence I swallowed was another brick in a house where they had no intention of saving me a room. That night, Cole was on our apartment floor sanding a piece of walnut for a custom shelf when I walked in. He looked up and knew before I said anything. "How bad?" he asked. I told him everything. The toast, the joke, the laughter, the line about one celebration, the way Aubrey looked away, the way my father's pride filled the room like smoke. Cole set down the sandpaper. He had dust on his jeans and a streak of sawdust on his cheek. He looked nothing like the men my father admired. He looked better. "I want to tell you something," he said. "You've been carrying their weight for free. That isn't what family does. That's what employees do, except employees get paid." I sat beside him and cried then. Not loud, not dramatically. Just the kind of crying that happens when someone finally says the truth in a room where you are safe enough to hear it. That night, I made 2 decisions. First, I would resign from Whitlock Hardware's bookkeeping. Not by text, not emotionally, formally, professionally, on letterhead, effective immediately. Second, I was done attending family events where my presence was expected, but my humanity was optional. I wrote the letter before midnight. 3 paragraphs. Clear, clean, final. I stated that all records were current through the quarter. I included passwords, vendor contacts, tax filing dates, and a transition checklist because professionalism is not the same as affection. In the 3rd paragraph, I wrote one sentence that would matter later. Without consistent financial oversight, vendor relationships, payroll compliance, and quarterly tax obligations may deteriorate within 12 to 18 months. I did not write it to threaten them. I wrote it because I am a CPA. Risk forecasting is part of the job. The next morning, I printed the letter, signed it, and made 2 copies. One for my files, one for them. One for the part of me that needed proof that I had not imagined my own boundary. I hand-delivered it to Whitlock Hardware on a Tuesday morning. The bell above the door chimed the same way it had since I was 10. My father stood behind the counter sorting lag bolts into bins. He had a pencil tucked behind his ear and reading glasses low on his nose. For one strange second, I saw him as he had been when I was little, tall and capable, the man who could fix anything. Then he looked at me, saw the envelope, and became the man from the dinner table again. "What's this?" "My resignation from the bookkeeping, effective immediately. Everything is current through this quarter." He opened the envelope and read the letter right there. His face went from confused to red in less than 5 seconds. "After everything we've done for you?" I had been waiting for that line. Maybe not those exact words, but the shape of them. "What have you done for me, Dad?" I asked. "Specifically." His mouth opened. Nothing came out. Because the honest answer was complicated, in the way lies are complicated. They had housed me as a child, fed me, raised me, yes, but for 8 adult years, I had been keeping his business alive while being told I did not deserve support. Childhood care is not a lifetime invoice parents get to use whenever their adult children stop being useful. You'll regret this, he said. Maybe, I said. But I'll regret staying more. My mother called that evening. You're making a terrible mistake? No, I said, I'm ending one. When Cole leaves you with nothing, don't come crawling back. I won't. And I meant it with every cell in my body. I did not block their numbers. I just stopped answering. The calls came often at first. My mother left voicemails that sounded like concern until the last sentence revealed the invoice hidden underneath. My father left none. Aubrey sent one text that said, "This is really unfair to Mom." I stared at that message for a full minute, then deleted it. Cutting contact did not feel like victory. It felt like withdrawal from something addictive and poisonous. There were mornings my thumb hovered over my mother's contact because I wanted to explain again. Better this time, softer this time, in a way she could finally hear. There were nights I felt guilty because I imagined my father sitting alone with a pile of invoices. But guilt is not always a moral compass. Sometimes it is just training. Cole and I got married 3 months later at the courthouse in Macon. Total cost, $1,912. My dress came from a consignment shop near Cherry Street, ivory lace, slightly too long, perfect after a $40 hem. Cole wore the one navy suit he owned and a tie Walt tied for him in the parking lot, because Cole could frame a roof, but could not make a decent knot to save his life. Our witnesses were my college friend Lena and Walt, who cried harder than anyone and pretended allergies were bad that day. Afterward, we ate lunch at a diner that still serves sweet tea in plastic cups. Chicken fried steak, mashed potatoes, peach cobbler. Cole carved our initials under the booth with his pocket knife, while the waitress looked the other way. That same week, Cole closed on a foreclosure outside Haddock. 3-bedroom ranch. Purchase price $64,000. Buckled floors, rotted porch posts, old carpet that smelled like rainwater and bad decisions. He looked at the place like a surgeon looks at a patient already imagining the recovery. Our plan was simple. He would renovate, I would manage the money, first flip, no family loans, no wedding gifts, no safety net, except skill. I opened a spreadsheet that night, cost projections, timeline, comps within a 5-mile radius, material estimates, permit fees, holding costs, sale price scenarios. Cole drew renovation plans on graph paper at the kitchen table while I ran numbers on my laptop. Other couples register for dishes, I said. Cole smiled. We registered for a circular saw and an LLC. 4 months later, we sold that house for $132,500. After renovation costs, taxes, commissions, and fees, our profit was $39,800. Our first return on investment. Cole took a picture of the check. I filed the capital gains. We ate pizza on the floor of our apartment and talked about the next one. Aubrey's wedding happened that September. I was not invited. Lena went because her cousin worked at the venue and got brought in as extra staff for the reception. She called me the next day, careful with every word. Lake Sinclair, 218 guests, a live band from Nashville, a champagne tower that leaned halfway through cocktail hour, orchids that wilted in the Georgia humidity because nobody bothered to listen to the florist's warning, custom napkins, drone footage, final cost, according to one bridesmaid who had seen the invoice folder, $91,000 before tips. My father gave a toast about investing in the future. I imagine he believed it. My mother cried again. Grant called Aubrey a rare woman worth every penny. Everyone clapped. Nobody mentioned the daughter who had kept the family business stable enough to fund the performance. That same weekend, Cole and I closed on our second property, a brick duplex near Milledgeville. Purchase price $73,000, renovation $35,000, sale price $161,000, profit $51,400. My sister spent nearly $100,000 on one night. Cole and I made $51,400 in 10 weeks. I did not keep score, but I am a CPA. Numbers live in my head whether I invite them or not. The hardware store started bleeding within 6 months, though no one told me directly. I heard the first sign through a supplier who accidentally emailed me an invoice question because my address was still in his contact list. I forwarded it to my father with one sentence. Please update your vendor contacts. He did not reply. Then my mother called 7 months after I resigned. I was sitting outside a property inspection, eating a granola bar and reviewing a contractor's bid when her name appeared on my phone. I answered because old habits do not die cleanly. "Your father's back is acting up," she said. "No hello, no how are you, no how is married life." "He can't do inventory alone and the new bookkeeper made some mistakes." I closed my eyes. "What kind of mistakes?" "She filed something wrong, payroll taxes. The IRS sent a letter. We might owe penalties." I waited. 3 seconds, 5, 8. No apology, no warmth, no curiosity. My mother had called me like you call a wrench when there is a leak. "I hope you find someone who can help," I said. "I'm not available." Silence. "You're really going to let your family struggle over pride?" "It isn't pride, Mom. It's a boundary." I hung up and stared at the contractor's bid until the numbers blurred. Cole was waiting when I got home. He saw my face and said, "They called for your skills, not for you." He was right. The difference between those two things changed my life. By the end of our first full year, Cole and I had completed 3 flips. Total profit after taxes, fees, material overruns, permit delays, and one plumbing disaster that taught us never to trust a seller's disclosure. $124,600. I filed the paperwork for Bennett Field Homes LLC in March. Seeing my married name on the documents felt like planting a flag in ground nobody had given me. Cole handled construction, design, subcontractors, and all the problems that required physical courage. I handled financing, accounting, permits, insurance, contracts, tenant screening, and all the problems that required patience and a calculator. He built houses, I built systems. Together, we were becoming something neither of us could have built alone. That spring, we bought 6 rental units from a retired couple moving to North Carolina. Small houses, mostly working families, a few Section 8 tenants who paid on time and just wanted repairs done without being treated like burdens. Purchase price $348,000, financed through a local credit union after 3 meetings, and one banker who looked at Cole's hands more than our projections. I had brought the projections printed, tabbed, and bound. By the end of the meeting, the banker was asking me questions instead of looking past me. I remembered my father saying Cole had no real career. Then I watched a loan officer approve our first portfolio purchase because Cole knew repair costs down to the board foot, and I knew the debt service ratio to the decimal. That summer, we found the land. 5 acres outside city limits, rolling hills, a line of old oaks along the ridge, red clay soil, wild blackberry bushes near the fence, and a view that opened wide at sunset. Price, $79,000. Cole walked the property line for 20 minutes without saying a word. Then he stopped under the biggest oak and said, "This is where we build our home." I started keeping a personal ledger around that time. Not for taxes, not for court, not to send anyone, for clarity. I went through 8 years of Whitlock hardware records, my copies, my backups, my calendar entries, old emails, vendor notes, payroll schedules, tax filings, insurance renewals, and bank reconciliation logs. I cataloged every hour I had worked, every task, every savings event, every compliance issue I prevented before anyone else knew it existed. Then I priced each service at market rate for a licensed CPA in Middle Georgia: quarterly bookkeeping, payroll administration, tax preparation, vendor reconciliation, cash flow forecasting, insurance negotiation, inventory reporting, sales tax filings, advisory work, emergency corrections, annual financial summaries my father used at bank meetings without mentioning who created them. The total sat at the bottom of page 49, $253,700. That is what 8 years of free labor looked like once I stopped calling it love. I stared at the number for a long time. My parents gave Aubrey $100,000 for a wedding. They told me I did not deserve help. And the whole time, I had been subsidizing their survival for more than $250,000 in professional work. I showed Cole that night. He read the final number, then looked at me with a sadness that made me feel seen and exposed at the same time. "You were running their business, Nora." "I know. For free." "I know." "And they said you didn't deserve help." I closed the ledger. This isn't about what they owe me. It's about what I owe myself. I never sent them an invoice. I did not need to. That ledger was not a weapon. It was a mirror. Once I saw the truth in black and white, I stopped begging my memory to be fair to people who had not been fair to me. The next twist came from someone I did not expect. The new bookkeeper my father hired, a woman named Patty from a Craigslist ad, emailed me one night claiming I had left the files, incomplete and confusing. She copied my father and mother. Her tone was sharp, defensive, and full of phrases like prior mismanagement and missing context. I read the email twice, then opened my archive and attached the transition checklist I had delivered with my resignation, along with time-stamped folders, filing confirmations, tax receipts, payroll reports, and password transfer notes. My reply was one paragraph. All records were current and complete as of my resignation date. Attached are the transition documents provided to Whitlock Hardware on May 3rd, including filing deadlines, vendor schedules, payroll obligations, and account access instructions. I copied everyone she had copied. She never replied. But the damage had already started. Patty had misclassified 2 part-time employees as independent contractors. She missed quarterly estimated payments. She entered supplier credits as income. She double-paid 2 vendors. She failed to reconcile bank statements for 4 months. My father, too proud to admit he did not understand the reports, signed whatever she put in front of him. The IRS penalties arrived first, then the state notices, then the insurance cancellation warning, then a supplier put them on COD terms after a late invoice crossed 60 days. My mother called again, I did not answer. Aubrey called once, I did not answer. Then Aubrey texted, "Dad might lose the store because you're mad." I wrote a reply and deleted it. What I wanted to say was, Dad might lose the store because he confused free labor with entitlement. What I sent was nothing. Year 2 was the year our success stopped looking lucky and started looking undeniable. We completed 8 flips. Average profit, $43,000. Rental cash flow crossed $9,100 a month. We signed our first commercial renovation contract, a dental office on Northside Drive, then a barber shop on Madison Street, then a small co-working space in an old warehouse district that everyone had ignored, until Cole saw potential in the bones. Bennett Field Homes crossed $1.3 million in net assets before our 3rd anniversary. No family money, no inheritance, no angel investor, no parent with a checkbook at the dining room table, just discipline, risk, work, and 2 people who trusted each other more than they trusted fear. The community started noticing. We hired local contractors. We bought materials from local suppliers. We sponsored youth baseball. Cole volunteered on a Habitat for Humanity build and ended up leading half the project because he could not watch crooked framing happen in silence. I taught a free budgeting workshop at the library for small landlords and single parents trying to fix their credit. I did it on a Tuesday night with 12 people in folding chairs and a dry erase marker that barely worked. A week later, someone told my mother about it at church. "Nora is doing such good work," Mrs. Braddock said, according to Lena's aunt, who reported everything with frightening accuracy. "You must be proud." My mother smiled tightly and said, "Of course." Then she changed the subject to the bake sale. That became a pattern. People began asking about me because I was visible now in ways my parents could not control. Job site signs, sponsorship banners, before and after photos in local real estate groups, a small article in the county paper about young businesses investing in older neighborhoods. The article called me co-owner and financial director. My mother clipped it out, according to a woman from her Bible study, but she did not call. My father showed up at our office 22 months after I resigned. Bennett Field Homes operated from a converted storefront on 2nd Street. Clean glass front, simple sign, 3 desks, a conference table Cole built from reclaimed pine, and a corkboard covered in permits, property photos, and project schedules. I was reviewing a change order when the bell above the door chimed. My father walked in with a cane. He was thinner than I remembered. His suit jacket hung loose. His face looked older, not just from age, but from pressure. His back had worsened, and he moved like every step cost him something. But his jaw was the same, set, hard, certain that reality would eventually bend. He glanced around the office, the framed business license, the project boards, our assistant, May, answering a tenant call, Cole's boots by the door because he had just come in from a job site, the visible proof that the man he dismissed had built something real. "You need to come back and help with the books," my father said. No hello, no congratulations, no apology, just need. I stayed seated. No. His eyebrows lifted like the words surprised him from my mouth. "Family helps family." "Family also comes to each other's weddings," I said. He blinked. Whatever speech he had rehearsed in the truck, That sentence was not in it. That was different. We were trying to protect you. From what? I asked, gesturing around the office. From this? His hand tightened around the cane. I didn't come here to argue. I came because we need help. I needed help too, I said. 3 years ago, at your table. He looked away first. That mattered. My father had never looked away first. He left without another word. The bell chimed behind him. May looked up from her desk, unsure whether to pretend she had not heard. Cole came out from the back office a moment later, saw my face, and understood. He came for the business, I said. Not for me. Cole nodded. Then he left with exactly what he brought. Nothing. Aubrey and Grant separated 22 months after the orchids wilted. I heard it from Lena, who heard it from her cousin, who heard it from the cousin's hairstylist, who had done Aubrey's highlights while Aubrey cried under foil. Small towns do not need fiber optic internet. They have salon chairs and church vestibules. The details came in fragments. Grant's spending had accelerated after the wedding, a leased SUV at $760 a month, weekend trips to Hilton Head on credit, a $14,000 watch because he said clients respected signals, new golf clubs, steaks, bottle service in Atlanta. Their joint credit card debt hit $47,000. The dealership cut his territory after 2 bad quarters. The SUV went back, the watch went to a pawn shop. The ring stayed on Aubrey's finger for 2 more months because she did not know who she was without it. Then Grant left. Not dramatically, not with a confession. He moved into an apartment near Macon with a woman who worked in dealership finance and already understood his credit score better than Aubrey ever had. Aubrey moved back into my parents' house. Her childhood bedroom still had lavender walls and a frame print of a beach sunset she bought at TJ Maxx when she was 17. 29 years old, sleeping in a twin bed, scrolling through wedding photos from a life that had collapsed before the thank you cards were all mailed. My parents invested $100,000 in my sister's future. Less than 2 years later, that future was folded into a garment bag in a closet. I expected to feel satisfaction, some dark little thrill. A private, I told you so. But I did not. I felt recognition. Aubrey was not my enemy in the way I had once imagined. She was a product of the same system that tried to consume me. The difference was, she had benefited from it until the benefits became chains. She had been taught that being chosen meant being safe. No one had taught her that being chosen for the wrong reasons can still ruin you. She called me once after the separation. I was screening a tenant application at the kitchen table, credit report open, employment verification pending. Her name appeared on my phone, and for reasons I still cannot fully explain, I answered. Nora, she said. Her voice was tight, smaller than I remembered. Mom and Dad are fighting all the time. The store is bad. Grant left me with debt. Everything is falling apart. I waited for the question I needed to hear. How are you? How is Cole? Are you happy? I'm sorry I didn't invite you. I'm sorry I laughed. It did not come. You could fix Dad's books, she said. You know the system. You built the system. I used to, I said. I don't anymore. You're being selfish. No, Aubrey, I'm being employed. The difference is one comes with a paycheck. She started crying then, but not for me. For the life she had lost, for the rescue she still expected. I felt sad, but sadness is not a contract. I hung up and went back to the tenant application. Some patterns are obvious in the data. Aubrey had always treated me as a resource, not a sister, and resources do not get invited to weddings. They get called when something breaks. Our house was finished in March of our 3rd year. I remember the exact day because Cole carried me over the threshold, misjudged the height, and I hit my head on the doorframe hard enough to see stars. We both ended up sitting on the porch steps, laughing until we cried, eating cold pizza from the box because the dining table had not arrived. 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, 2,850 square feet on 5 acres. Modern farmhouse, but not the fake kind with decorative beams and no soul. Real reclaimed wood from houses we had saved or taken apart with permission. Oak from our first flip, pine from the College Street bungalow, walnut from a demolished law office in Milledgeville, stone fireplace built by Cole from fieldstone we collected along the back slope. Handmade cabinets he built over 3 weekends and sanded until the grain glowed. Butcher block counters from a reclaimed bowling alley, wraparound porch wide enough for a table, 10 chairs, and the rocking chair Walt gave us with a card that said, "For the home you earned." Appraised value, $2.1 million. Land, $79,000. Construction cost, $423,000. When your husband does most of the skilled labor and your wife watches every invoice like a hawk, the math changes. I walked through the kitchen alone one morning before Cole woke up. I ran my hand over the counter and thought about my father saying Cole did not have a real career. Every surface in that house answered him without making a sound. We hosted our first dinner that weekend. Lena, Walt, May, two subcontractors and their wives, and a retired teacher named Mrs. Talbot, who had taught both me and Aubrey in elementary school and somehow became one of my fiercest supporters after buying one of our renovated cottages. 12 chairs around the table. I had built a dining room for 12. My parents had one with a seat they never saved for me. Word traveled fast. Gray is small enough that everyone knows your business, and large enough that they pretend they do not. People started connecting names. Bennett Field Homes, Nora Bennett. Wait, Bennett like Cole Bennett? The bankruptcy kid? And Nora, wasn't she Arthur Whitlock's daughter? The one who used to do the hardware store's books? The one nobody sees at church anymore? Meanwhile, Whitlock Hardware looked like a slow exhale. Inventory thinned. Shelves had gaps where product used to be. The garden section lost half its seasonal display. A handwritten help wanted sign stayed in the window for months. My father sat behind the register on a stool because of his back. My mother worked the floor full-time for the first time in years, wearing comfortable shoes and the tight expression of a woman who had built her identity around being admired and was now being observed. Customers drifted to big stores in Macon and Warner Robins. Contractors stopped using Whitlock as their first call because late supplier payments meant inconsistent stock. A vendor filed a lien threat. The line of credit was nearly maxed, and then I learned the twist that explained the $100,000. My father had not pulled that money from savings. There were no savings that large. He had borrowed against the store's building. The wedding gift was not generosity. It was leverage disguised as love. My parents had mortgaged the roof over the business to fund one daughter's performance, while telling the other daughter she did not deserve help. When sales softened and errors piled up, the payment on that loan became an anchor. I learned this from a banker I knew professionally, not because he broke confidentiality, but because he asked during an unrelated meeting whether I had any connection to Whitlock Hardware. I said yes, carefully. He said only, "I'm sorry, hard season for them." That was enough. I knew how to read around numbers, even when no one handed me the page. 2 weeks later, my mother called. "People are talking," she said. Her voice had the thin, controlled sound she used when managing a situation. Not a daughter, a situation. "What are they saying?" "They think we abandoned you." "You didn't abandon me," I said. "You chose someone else." "That is not fair." "What was fair, Mom? The dinner, the engagement party, my wedding invitation that never came, the years I worked for free? Which part was fair?" She inhaled sharply. "We were worried about Cole." "No, you were embarrassed by him. There's a difference." She changed tactics. Smoothly. My mother had been managing narratives for 30 years. Aubrey is going through a terrible time. Grant left her with all that debt. She could really use her sister. "Aubrey has her family," I said. "You made that clear." The call ended. I did not cry. Not because I was hard, because I had already done my crying. Quiet crying in the car after family dinners. Silent crying in the shower after being overlooked. Controlled crying at my desk after running numbers that proved my worth to people who would not name it. There's a difference between grieving your family and grieving the idea of one. By then, I had mostly finished grieving the idea. The Gray Community Fundraiser was the biggest social event of the year. A gala at the Civic Center supporting the food bank, youth programs, emergency rent assistance, and a scholarship fund for trade students, white tablecloths, silent auction, 200 guests, teachers, business owners, city council members, church deacons, contractors, bankers, and every family that had ever mattered in our town. Whitlock Hardware had sponsored that fundraiser for 15 years. My father loved seeing the store name on the program. He treated it like proof of status, but that year, they could barely afford a table. Linda Prescott, the event organizer, called me in February. "Nora, Bennett Field Homes has done so much for this community. We'd be honored if you and Cole would be presenting sponsors this year." I said yes, not to make a point, not to humiliate anyone, because we cared about the town we had chosen to build in. We had hired local workers, renovated neglected homes, sponsored youth baseball, partnered with Habitat, and funded small repairs for two elderly tenants who could not afford them. This was not performance. This was who we were becoming. Word reached my parents within days. Aubrey saw the sponsor announcement on Instagram and called my mother crying. "She's doing it to show off," Aubrey said, according to Lena's network of polite whispers. "She wants everyone to compare us." My family assumed my success was about them because their world had always been arranged around their feelings. It was not about them, but I understood why they thought so. When you are used to being the center, someone else's light feels like an attack. Then came another twist. 1 week before the fundraiser, Linda called me sounding embarrassed. "I wanted to let you know something before you hear it elsewhere," she said. "Someone sent the committee an anonymous complaint saying Bennett Field Homes uses unsafe labor and questionable accounting. No proof, just accusations." I sat very still. "What kind of accusations? Vague ones, cash payments, unlicensed workers, permit issues. Honestly, it reads like someone angry, not someone informed." I almost laughed. "Almost. Do you need documentation?" Linda sighed with relief. "That would help." Within 2 hours, I sent business licenses, contractor insurance certificates, payroll records, permit closeout documents, inspection reports, tax compliance letters, and employee classification forms. I did not know who sent the complaint then, but I knew the shape of it. It sounded like my family's fear wearing a mask. Later, I learned it had come from Grant. He had heard about the fundraiser through Aubrey, gotten drunk, and sent the complaint from a fake email address using phrases my father had used at dinner 3 years earlier. Unstable labor, questionable judgment, risky partnership. He thought he was helping Aubrey. He only helped me prove again that paperwork beats gossip. Linda called the next morning. "You are the most organized sponsor we've ever had." "I've had practice," I said. 2 weeks before the fundraiser, Aubrey drove past our house. She was making deliveries for the store because my mother had convinced my father that online local delivery would save the business. A special order of cabinet hardware had to go to a customer outside the county line, and the route passed our property. I was not home. Cole was in the workshop cutting trim for a bathroom renovation when he heard a car slow down. He looked up and saw a silver Honda stopped at our gate. Engine running, a woman inside gripping the steering wheel. Then she put the phone to her ear and began crying. Cole did not recognize her. He went back to work. He told me that evening. "That was Aubrey," I said. He paused. "You sure?" "I'm sure." I imagined what she saw, the White House on the hill, the dark shutters, the porch wrapping around 3 sides, the workshop, the magnolia trees, the garden beds, the gravel drive, all of it built by the sister who married a mistake, all of it built by the man who had no real career. Lena called later that night. "Aubrey called your mom from the road," she said. "She kept saying, 'How does Nora have that? How does Nora have a house like that?'" My mother had no answer because the answer was the kind of math she could not rearrange. I had that house because I was Nora, because Cole was Cole, because we built instead of begging, because the people who denied us help accidentally forced us to find out what we could do without them. The fundraiser arrived on a warm April evening. The Civic Center glowed under soft lights, white tablecloths, magnolia centerpieces, silent auction tables along the east wall, a small band setting up near the stage. The seating chart was, as always, a political document, presenting sponsors near the front, longtime donors in the center, everyone else arranged according to money, history, and careful diplomacy. Cole and I arrived at 6:30. I wore a navy dress, simple and fitted, no designer label. Cole wore his good blazer and a tie I had bought him from the same consignment shop where I found my wedding dress. He tugged at the collar every 30 seconds until I put my hand over his and whispered, "You look handsome." "I look like I'm being sentenced," he whispered back. My parents were already there, table 14 near the back, my father in a suit jacket that hung looser than it used to, my mother with her church smile, bright and tense, Aubrey beside them in a sage green dress I recognized from the boutique where she used to work. The tag crease still showed faintly at the back of the neck. The room noticed us, not loudly. Rooms like that do not gasp. They glance, they whisper, they pretend to adjust napkins while watching old stories collide. Our table was near the stage. Table 3, presenting sponsors. Cole squeezed my hand under the tablecloth. Aubrey intercepted me near the refreshment table 10 minutes later. Nice of you to show up where you're not wanted, she said quietly. I was invited, I said. Actually, I was asked to sponsor. You're only here to make us look bad. I looked at my sister, 29 years old, living in our parents' house, drowning in debt her ex-husband left like a broken suitcase, wearing a dress from a life she no longer had. I'm here because I believe in this community, I said. The same way I believed in our family, until our family made it clear the feeling wasn't mutual. Her mouth tightened. You always talk like you're better than everyone. No, I said. I talk like someone who stopped apologizing for being right about her own life. She walked away first. Linda Prescott took the stage at 7:15. She thanked the volunteers, the donors, the food bank staff, the youth program mentors, the auction committee, and the city council. Then she reached the sponsor section. This year's presenting sponsor is a couple whose work reflects what this fundraiser is truly about, she said. Community, restoration, second chances. They came into this town's older neighborhoods with a business plan, a set of hand tools, and a belief that neglected things still have value. In 3 years, they have renovated homes, created jobs, supported local youth programs, and built one of the most respected property companies in this county. Please join me in thanking Cole and Nora Bennett of Bennett Field Homes. The room stood, 200 people, teachers who had known me as a quiet girl with straight A's, contractors who had seen Cole on job sites before sunrise, business owners who had heard my father call him unstable, church members who had watched my family sit in the third pew for 2 decades, all standing, applauding, for the daughter who had been told she did not deserve help. I stood, nodded, and sat back down. Cole did the same. No speech, no wave, just acknowledgement. Across the room, my family sat frozen. My father stared at his plate. My mother's smile held but did not reach her eyes. Aubrey shredded a cocktail napkin in her lap. Throughout dinner, people came to our table, not in a dramatic parade, but in a steady current. A teacher thanked us for sponsoring the scholarship fund. A contractor said working with Cole was the first time he had been paid on time every time. A woman from the food bank said our donation would cover emergency groceries for 40 families. A man from the city council said the Broadway renovation had changed how people saw that block. Each compliment landed like a line item on a ledger I never had to show anyone. Table 14 stayed quiet, not because people were cruel, because people pay attention. They notice who builds and who complains. They notice who shows up and who rewrites history. And for 3 years, without saying a word, I had let the evidence gather. My father found me during the silent auction. I was reading the description on a framed watercolor of the Ocmulgee River when he appeared beside me. He smelled like aftershave and something metallic, like a man running on adrenaline and too little sleep. You've made your point, he said. I did not turn immediately. I wasn't making one. Now stop making us look bad. I turned then, really looked at him. 61 years old, bad back, dying business, favorite daughter's marriage collapsed, the daughter he dismissed standing in front of him as the sponsor he used to be. I'm not making you look like anything, Dad. I'm living my life. We gave Aubrey that money because she needed it more. She didn't have your skills. The words were meant to explain. They only revealed. So you knew I had skills, I said. You just thought you could use them for free. His face tightened. That's not what I said. It's what you did. I was trying to protect you. From what? I asked. From building a $2 million home, from running a profitable company, from hiring people, from standing in this room as the sponsor of an event your store can no longer afford? His mouth opened, then closed. For 30 years, my father's authority had been the final word in every room. Now he was standing in front of a daughter whose numbers were bigger, whose reputation was cleaner, and whose voice was calmer. He had no script for that. He walked back to table 14. 8 minutes later, my mother made the private public. I was back at our table talking with Cole about bidding on the watercolor when the room shifted. That specific silence dropped, the one that happens when a crowd senses something intimate is about to become entertainment. My mother was walking toward us, not fast, deliberate. Her heels clicked against the Civic Center floor like a countdown. She stopped 3 feet from our table. Her mascara had begun to bleed at the corners. You're punishing us, she said. Her voice was loud enough for the nearest tables to hear. I stood slowly. You built this whole life to throw it in our faces, she said, louder now. The house, the business, the sponsorship. You wanted everyone to see us like this. Mom, I said, I didn't build my life to punish you. I built it because you told me I was on my own, so I went on my own. We sacrificed everything for this family. You sacrificed for the family you chose? I said. I wasn't part of that family. You made that clear at Aubrey's engagement party. Dad made it clear at dinner. You don't get to be angry that I listened. Aubrey appeared behind her, drawn by the gravity of the scene. You always had to be better than everyone, Aubrey said, tears shining in her eyes. You always had to prove something. I looked at my sister, and for the first time, I did not see only the favorite. I saw a woman who had been handed softness instead of strength, and was now furious that softness had not saved her. I didn't have to be better, Aubrey, I said. I just had to survive without you. The room was silent. 200 people watching 30 years of family math finally being audited in public. My father did not stand. He stayed at table 14, hands folded, staring at the tablecloth like a man reading a verdict he already knew. My mother's voice broke. You don't know what it's like to watch your daughter walk away. You're right, I said. I don't know what it's like to watch a daughter walk away. I only know what it's like to be the daughter who had to. Then I sat down. Cole took my hand. I did not leave. I did not storm out. I did not deliver a final speech. I returned to my dinner, my seat, my life. The confrontation was over not because I won, but because there was nothing left to prove. My family left at 8:43, my mother first, purse clutched to her chest. Aubrey behind her, head down, my father last, moving slowly with his cane. He paused at the double doors and looked back once, at the room, at the stage, at our table. Then he stepped outside. The gala continued. The band played. The silent auction closed. People slowly found their way to our table. Mrs. Talbot sat beside me and placed her hand over mine. We always wondered why you stopped coming around, she said. Now we understand. A church deacon shook Cole's hand. Your wife's mother told people Nora moved away for work. We didn't know. My 9th grade English teacher, Mrs. Lane, touched my arm. I taught both you girls. I always knew you were the steady one. I'm sorry I didn't say it when it would have mattered. I thanked each of them, meant it every time. Outside, my father sat alone in his truck. My mother and Aubrey had already driven away. Lena's husband happened to be parked 2 rows over and later told me he heard my father through the open window. I was trying to protect her, my father whispered. I believe he meant it. That was the tragedy. He would always believe his control was protection. But sitting alone in that parking lot, while 200 people applauded the daughter he said did not deserve help, Arthur Whitlock understood for the first time that intentions do not repair damage after the foundation has already cracked. The gala ended at 10. Cole and I stayed to help stack chairs and break down auction tables. Old habits, but different now. Helping by choice does not feel like being used. When we walked outside, my mother was standing near the exit. I do not know how long she had been waiting. Her makeup was cleaned up, but her eyes were swollen. Come home for dinner, she said. Sunday, we can try to fix this. We can be a family again. I looked at her, the woman who erased my name from a toast, the woman who said they could only pour their hearts into one celebration, the woman who called when the books broke, but not when my birthday came, the woman who told people I moved away for work instead of admitting I had walked away from pain. I loved her. I would always love her, but love and access are different accounts. I am home, Mom, I said. I've been home for 3 years. You just never came to visit. Her face crumpled. I didn't know where you lived. You didn't ask. We stood there for a moment, 2 women separated by 10 feet of concrete and 3 years of choices that could not be unchosen. Then Cole took my hand, and we walked to the truck. I did not close the door on my mother that night. I just stopped pretending it was open. The fallout arrived the way compound interest does, quietly at first, then all at once. Whitlock Hardware went up for sale 4 weeks after the fundraiser. 22 years of bolts, brackets, paint cans, garden hoses, contractor accounts, and my father's pride listed with a commercial broker on Cherry Street. A regional fast service chain bought the location for $162,000, almost $90,000 less than the building could have brought in a stronger position. The outstanding loan from Aubrey's wedding ate most of what remained after debts, penalties, vendor settlements, and closing costs. My father signed the papers in a broker's office without ceremony. No toast, no speech about investing in the future. Just a pen, a notary, and the end of a legacy I had helped keep alive for 8 years without a thank you. Aubrey moved to Atlanta in June. She took a retail job at a home goods store, $9.75 an hour, and rented a small room in Decatur from a woman she met online. Her credit score was in the low 500s. Grant had left her with $47,000 in joint debt and a wedding album she could not look at without crying. My mother packed Aubrey's car with sheets, dishes, and grocery bags full of snacks, like Aubrey was leaving for college instead of starting over from the wreckage of a marriage everyone had overfunded and underexamined. My father stopped attending church, his back worsened, and a surgeon in Atlanta recommended an operation he could not afford easily now. My mother still sat in the third pew, but the women who once admired the Whitlocks did not gather around her the same way, not from cruelty, from discomfort. Everyone knew enough to be careful, and careful silence can be louder than judgment. 3 years of my silence had cost my family their store, their reputation, and the story they had told about themselves. I did not cause it. I just stopped preventing it. There is a difference between revenge and withdrawal. Revenge takes energy, withdrawal just takes truth. My life continued the way well-built things do, steady, functional, improving with time. Bennett Field Homes reached 25 rental properties by fall, 8 full-time employees, revenue on track for $1.4 million. Cole designed a community workshop for veterans and teenagers, aging out of foster care, free classes in carpentry, basic home repair, budgeting, and how not to get cheated by contractors. We funded it through the company and hosted it in the renovated Broadway warehouse. I planted a vegetable garden behind the house, tomatoes, zucchini, basil, snap peas climbing a trellis, Cole welded from salvaged rebar. In the mornings, I sat on the porch with coffee and watched fog lift from the hills. The oaks looked taller than when we bought the land. Maybe they were. Or maybe I was finally still enough to notice growth without needing anyone to clap for it. A letter arrived on a Tuesday in October. Plain white envelope, my father's handwriting. I recognized it instantly after 8 years of reading his notes in the margins of invoices. I opened it at the mailbox with the afternoon sun warm on my shoulders. Inside was one folded piece of notebook paper. I was wrong, that was all. No explanation, no request, no but, no defense, no return address, though I knew exactly where he lived. Just 3 words in blue ink. I read them twice. Then I carried the letter inside and sat with it at the kitchen table for a long time. Cole found me there an hour later. He did not ask what I was going to do. He just sat across from me and waited. Finally, I folded the letter and placed it in the filing cabinet. Same drawer as the ledger, same drawer as my resignation letter, same drawer as the life I had accounted for and moved past. Forgiving my father was not something I owed him. It was something I might give myself one day when I was ready. I was not ready yet. Some accounts take longer to reconcile than others. Some balance sheets never fully close. A month later, Aubrey sent me an email. Not a call, not a crying voicemail, an email with no subject line. I opened it late at night after Cole had fallen asleep. She wrote that she had started credit counseling. She wrote that she had sold the last pieces of wedding decor stored in my parents' garage. She wrote that she had finally looked at the numbers and understood, maybe for the first time, what kind of gift our parents had given her and what kind of burden they had placed on me. She did not ask for money. She did not ask me to fix anything. At the very end, she wrote, "I don't know how to be your sister now, but I know I wasn't one then. I'm sorry." I cried over that email, not because it fixed everything, it did not, but because for the first time Aubrey had spoken to me without needing something repaired. I replied 3 days later, "Thank you for saying that. I'm not ready for more yet, but I hope you keep rebuilding." It was not reconciliation. It was not a reunion. It was a small, honest line drawn in a place where lies used to live. The people who told me I did not deserve help gave me the greatest gift they could have given, without meaning to. They gave me the certainty that everything I built afterward was mine. Every wall, every number, every morning on that porch, every payroll I signed, every employee we hired, every family we housed, every beam Cole placed with his own hands, every dollar I tracked with discipline nobody could dismiss anymore. My sister got $100,000 for a wedding that lasted 22 months. My parents got 8 years of free labor worth more than $250,000 and never once called it sacrifice, because it was mine. My father got to learn too late that the daughter he refused to invest in had been the one keeping his investment alive. And I got a life that did not require their permission. If you have ever been the one they looked past, the one they called strong so they would not have to help you, the one they expected to show up quietly and disappear politely, you already know this feeling. You know the silence after you stop explaining. You know the ache of building your own table because nobody saved you a chair. And if you stay with your own life long enough, you also learn something better. The sound of your own future getting louder is worth every room you had to leave behind. Commentary, discussion, explanation, and lessons. Now let's slow down and talk about this story properly, because this is not just a story about money. It is not only about a wedding gift. It is not only about a sister getting $100,000 while the other daughter gets nothing. Under the surface, the story is about value. It is about the pain of being useful, but not loved in the way you deserve. It is about a daughter who kept showing up, kept fixing problems, kept saving the family business, and still got treated like she was the one who should be grateful. And that is why this story hits so hard. Because many people know this feeling. Maybe not with a hardware store, maybe not with a $100,000 wedding, but many people know what it feels like to be the dependable one, the quiet one, the strong one, the one everyone calls when something breaks, but no one remembers when something good happens. At the beginning, we see Nora standing at her kitchen window, watching her sister Aubrey stop outside her gate. That opening is powerful because it shows us the ending before we understand the journey. Aubrey is crying outside the house Nora built with coal. That image says so much without needing a big speech. The sister who once received everything is now looking at the life Nora created, without family money, without approval, and without applause. And the pain in that moment is not just jealousy, it is realization. Aubrey is seeing proof. She is seeing that the person everyone underestimated was the one with real strength. She is seeing that Nora did not fail without them. Nora rose without them. Then the story takes us back to the family table. And that family table is very important. In many families, the dinner table is supposed to be a place of warmth, truth, and belonging. But in this story, the table becomes a courtroom. Nora's father announces that Aubrey will get $100,000 for her wedding. Everyone celebrates. Everyone smiles. Everyone accepts it like this is normal. But when Nora quietly mentions that she and Cole are also thinking about marriage, her father cuts her down with one sentence: "You don't deserve any help." That sentence is the emotional center of the story. It is not just rude. It is not just unfair. It is a complete judgment of Nora's life, her love, her future, and her worth. Her father is not only denying her money, he is denying her dignity. And here is what makes it even deeper. Nora had already been helping the family for 8 years. She had been doing professional accounting work for free. She saved the business from mistakes, penalties, overcharges, and bad decisions. She did real work, valuable work, skilled work. But because she did it quietly, her family stopped seeing it as a gift. They started seeing it as something they were owed. That is a major lesson from this story. Sometimes when you give too much for too long, people do not become more thankful. Sometimes they become more entitled. They stop saying thank you because your sacrifice becomes part of the furniture. They only notice it when it disappears. Nora's father says Cole does not have a real career. That line is also important. He judges Cole by image, not by character. Cole works with his hands, he builds, he repairs. He has a rough background. His family went bankrupt. To Nora's father, that means Cole is risky. But the story later proves something beautiful. A person's past struggle does not define their future value. Cole may not have the polished career Nora's father respects, but he has discipline, skill, honesty, and loyalty. He stands beside Nora when her own family humiliates her. He does not make a big dramatic promise. He simply says, "Whatever you need." And sometimes that quiet support is worth more than 100 speeches. Now let's talk about Nora's mother, Denise. Her role is not loud at first, but it is very painful. She does not shout like the father. She does not openly attack like some villains do. Instead, she excuses, softens, and redirects. She says, "Your father didn't mean it like that, but he did mean it. And even if he did not, the damage still happened." This is something many families do. They protect the person who caused the wound, then ask the wounded person to be more understanding. They say, "Don't be sensitive." They say, "He was stressed." They say, "We're family." But family should not mean one person gets to hurt others and everyone else has to keep smiling. Denise also says Aubrey is more sensitive. That sentence tells us the entire family system. Aubrey gets help because she cries. Nora gets ignored because she handles things. This is unfair but very common. The strong child often gets less care because people assume they can take it. The responsible one gets more duties and fewer hugs. The quiet one gets trusted with burdens but not included in celebrations. And over time, that strong person may start believing they do not need love. But they do. Strength does not cancel pain. Responsibility does not replace affection. Nora needed support too, even if she did not collapse in front of everyone. The engagement party scene makes everything clearer. Nora helps decorate, organize, print cards, fix problems, and pay for last-minute supplies. Then her mother gives a toast and thanks everyone except Nora. That is not a small thing. Public silence can hurt as much as public insult. When someone benefits from your work and then erases your name, they are telling you where you stand. And when Denise says they can only pour their hearts into one celebration, she is not just talking about a party. She is admitting the family rule. Aubrey gets the heart, Nora gets the labor. That is the moment something clicks inside Nora. I love that the story does not say she explodes. She does not scream. She does not throw wine. She does not create a scene. Instead, she goes home and makes a decision. That is powerful because real change is often quiet. Sometimes the strongest revenge is not loud. It is a signed letter. It is a closed laptop. It is no longer answering calls that only come when people need something. Nora resigns from the bookkeeping. She does not do it in anger. She does it professionally. She gives them all the information they need. That shows her character. She is not trying to destroy them. She is simply refusing to keep saving them for free. This is where the story becomes very interesting. Because after Nora leaves, the family does not fall apart immediately. It happens slowly. That is realistic. In life, when one person has been holding everything together, people often do not notice at first. They think, we'll be fine. They hire someone cheaper. They blame the one who left. They act confident, but then the small mistakes begin. A missed filing, a payroll issue, a supplier problem, an insurance warning. One wrong number becomes 5 wrong numbers. One ignored problem becomes a crisis. And suddenly everyone understands that the person they called difficult was actually the system keeping things stable. Nora and Cole's marriage is another important part. They do not have a big wedding. They do not get a $100,000 gift. They have a courthouse ceremony, a simple dress, a small lunch, and real love. That contrast is beautiful. Aubrey gets the expensive wedding. Nora gets the stable marriage. Aubrey gets the flowers and music. Nora gets a partner who builds beside her. The story is not saying big weddings are bad. It is saying that a wedding is not the same as a marriage. You can spend a fortune on one day and still have no foundation. And you can spend very little and build something strong if the people involved respect each other. The business journey with Cole is one of the best parts of the story because it changes the meaning of value. Nora's father thought value came from status, but Nora and Cole show that value can come from skill, trust, discipline, and teamwork. Cole knows construction, Nora knows numbers. Together, they turn broken houses into homes. That is symbolic. They are not just flipping properties. They are rebuilding their own lives. Every old house they repair reflects something inside Nora being repaired too. Every profit shows that her judgment was not a mistake. Every project says, we were enough. The personal ledger is one of the strongest ideas in the story. Nora calculates the market value of 8 years of free work and discovers it was worth over $250,000. That number is not about greed. It is about clarity. Sometimes we need numbers because feelings get dismissed. Nora had always felt used, but the ledger proves it. It shows that she was not being dramatic. She was not being selfish. She was not imagining the imbalance. She had been giving professional labor, emotional labor, family labor, and invisible labor for years. And once she sees the number, she stops doubting herself. That is a lesson many people need. Sometimes the truth becomes easier to accept when you finally measure what you gave. The story also gives us a complicated view of Aubrey. At first, it is easy to see her as the spoiled sister. And yes, she benefits from the unfair system. She accepts the money, she laughs at the jokes, she does not defend Nora, but later, we see that Aubrey is also damaged by the same family system. She was taught to be chosen, not strong. She was taught to be admired, not prepared. Her expensive wedding does not save her marriage. Her husband's spending, debt, and image obsession destroy the life everyone funded for her. That is a painful lesson. Being the favorite child is not always a blessing. Sometimes it makes you dependent on approval and unprepared for reality. Grant's role also matters. He represents image without substance. He wants expensive things, attention, status, and applause. He leases cars, buys watches, and talks like success is something you can wear. But when pressure comes, he leaves debt behind. That is why Nora's father was so wrong. He judged Cole because Cole looked risky, while Grant looked safe. But real safety is not about suits, rings, or cars. Real safety is character. Cole had character. Grant had performance. Then we reach the fundraiser, and this is the public turning point. The fundraiser is not just a social event. It is the place where private family stories meet public reality. For years, Nora's parents controlled the narrative. Maybe they told people Nora moved away. Maybe they avoided the truth. Maybe they made themselves look like wounded parents. But when Nora and Cole become presenting sponsors, the town sees the truth with its own eyes. Nora is not broken. She is not lost. She is not a failure. She is respected. She is generous. She is standing at the front of the room because she earned it. And notice Nora's behavior at the fundraiser. She does not arrive to attack. She does not make a speech against her parents. She does not expose them with documents. She simply shows up as herself. That is what makes the family panic. They are not afraid of her anger. They are afraid of her success. Because her success proves their judgment was wrong. Her calmness is more powerful than any revenge plan. When people who underestimated you see you peaceful, respected, and stable, it can disturb them more than any argument. The confrontation with her father is powerful because he finally says something revealing. Aubrey needed the money more because she did not have Nora's skills. That sounds like an excuse, but it actually proves Nora's point. He knew Nora was capable. He knew she had skills. He just used that as a reason not to support her. This is a painful truth in many families. The capable person gets less because people think they can survive anyway. But love should not be based on weakness. Support should not only go to the person who falls apart first. The mother's public breakdown is also important. Denise accuses Nora of building her life to humiliate them. But Nora's answer is calm and sharp. I built it because you told me I was on my own. That line is the heart of the commentary. When people abandon you and then get angry that you learned to live without them, that is not your guilt to carry. Nora did exactly what they forced her to do. She became independent. She built a home. She built a company. She built peace. And now they are upset because her independence exposes their failure. One of the deepest lines is when Nora says, I don't know what it's like to watch a daughter walk away. I only know what it's like to be the daughter who had to. That sentence turns the whole story around. Parents often frame estrangement as children leaving. But sometimes children leave because staying means being hurt again and again. Walking away is not always cruelty. Sometimes it is survival. Sometimes it is the last healthy choice left. The ending is not a fairy tale reconciliation, and that makes it stronger. The store is sold. Aubrey moves away and starts over. The father sends a small letter. I was wrong. Nora does not instantly forgive him. And that is honest. An apology does not erase years of pain. It may open a door, but it does not rebuild the whole house. Forgiveness is not something people can demand from the person they hurt. Nora keeps the letter, but she also keeps her boundary. That is maturity. She does not need to hate him, but she also does not need to hand him full access to her life. So, what do we learn from this story? First, never confuse being needed with being valued. If people only call when there is a problem, they may not love you the way you think. Second, free labor can become invisible labor if you never set boundaries. Helping family is beautiful, but being used by family is not. Third, the person people call risky may become your greatest blessing if they have loyalty, skill, and character. Fourth, public image is not the same as real stability. Aubrey's expensive wedding looked perfect, but it was built on debt and weak foundations. Nora's small courthouse wedding looked simple, but it became the start of a strong life. Fifth, walking away is not always revenge. Sometimes it is the only way to stop bleeding, and maybe the biggest lesson is this. You do not have to destroy people who mistreated you. Sometimes you just stop holding them up. You stop fixing every mistake. You stop explaining your pain to people committed to misunderstanding it. You stop showing up to rooms where your name is erased. Then time does the work. Truth does the work. Their own choices do the work. Nora's victory is not that her family suffered. Her victory is that she became free. She built a home where love and respect lived together. She built a business where her skills were paid for and appreciated. She built a marriage where her husband saw her clearly. She built a table where people came because they valued her, not because they needed her to clean up the mess. And for anyone listening who feels like Nora, remember this. You are not less valuable because people failed to value you. You are not selfish for wanting fairness. You are not cruel for setting boundaries. If you have been the strong one, the quiet one, the dependable one, you still deserve care. You still deserve celebration. You still deserve help. And if they never save you a chair at their table, maybe your life is asking you to build your own. That is what this story is really about. Not just revenge, not just money, not just family drama. It is about the moment a person finally stops asking, "Why didn't they choose me?" and starts saying, "I choose myself now." The end.